The emergency klaxon pierced through the pre-dawn silence of Naval Special Warfare Command, jolting SEAL Team Delta from their brief respite between missions. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison rolled from his bunk with practiced efficiency, muscle memory guiding him through the familiar routine of crisis deployment. Within 90 seconds, 12 elite operators assembled in the briefing room, their faces bearing the weathered confidence of men who had survived impossible odds across 3 continents. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where extreme weather tested your limits, whether hiking in mountains, dealing with harsh winters, or facing nature's most challenging conditions? The story you're about to hear takes place in some of the most unforgiving terrain on Earth, where survival itself becomes a mission. Commander Sarah Reeves strode into the room carrying classified folders sealed with red tape, her expression conveying the gravity of their new assignment. The overhead projector hummed to life, displaying satellite imagery of snow-capped peaks that stretched endlessly across the Swiss-Austrian border, their jagged silhouettes cutting through gray storm clouds like ancient monuments to nature's power. NATO forces conducting winter training exercises had become trapped in the Bernina Pass after an unexpected enemy battalion materialized from seemingly empty valleys, Reeves explained with clinical precision. The intelligence failure was massive, she admitted, with reconnaissance satellites somehow missing the deployment of over 200 hostile combatants who had established commanding positions along the narrow mountain corridor. Sergeant Sarah McKenzie sat quietly in the back row, studying the topographical maps with the intense focus that had earned her reputation as Delta Team's most precise sniper. Her slight frame and auburn hair pulled back in regulation style often led others to underestimate her capabilities, a mistake that had proven costly for enemies across 4 combat deployments. The rescue window was closing rapidly, Reeves continued, as blizzard conditions were forecast to intensify within 24 hours. The trapped NATO forces had taken casualties and were running low on medical supplies, their radio transmissions growing weaker as hypothermia set in among the wounded. Standard helicopter insertion would be impossible once the storm arrived in full force, leaving ground infiltration as the only viable option. Staff Sergeant Tom Rodriguez leaned forward in his chair, his scarred hands tracing the assault routes on the tactical display. The enemy had chosen their positions with devastating effectiveness, he observed, controlling all 3 approaches to the pass while maintaining clear fields of fire across the valley floor. Any frontal assault would result in catastrophic casualties before the team could reach effective range. McKenzie raised her hand quietly, drawing skeptical glances from several team members who had worked together for years without her presence. Her analysis of the glacier formations suggested an alternative approach through terrain that conventional wisdom deemed impassable, she explained, pointing to areas where ice flows created natural concealment corridors. Petty Officer First Class Mike Chen shifted uncomfortably in his seat, exchanging meaningful looks with Rodriguez and the other senior team members. The alpine conditions would push even experienced mountaineers to their limits, he pointed out, with temperatures dropping to -30 degrees and winds exceeding 60 miles per hour. Bringing McKenzie on such a mission seemed unnecessarily risky given her smaller physical profile and relative inexperience with extreme cold weather operations. Morrison studied the mission parameters carefully, weighing tactical necessities against team cohesion concerns. McKenzie's marksmanship scores were undeniably exceptional, ranking in the top 5% of all special operations snipers. But the harsh reality of alpine warfare demanded physical endurance that few operators could sustain. The margin for error was essentially non-existent, with evacuation impossible once they committed to the insertion. Chief Petty Officer Amanda Torres spoke up from her position near the equipment lockers, her voice carrying the authority of 15 years in special operations. McKenzie had performed flawlessly during their previous mission in Afghanistan, she reminded the team, demonstrating both tactical brilliance and physical resilience under extreme conditions. Dismissing her capabilities based on assumptions rather than evidence would be both unprofessional and potentially catastrophic for mission success. The debate continued for several minutes until Reeves called for silence, her command presence cutting through the tension like a blade. Team composition was finalized with McKenzie included, she announced, based on mission requirements rather than personal preferences. The enemy's sniper positions demanded counter-sniper capabilities that only Mackenzie possessed among available personnel. Equipment preparation began immediately, with each team member selecting specialized cold weather gear designed for extended operations in subarctic conditions. Mackenzie methodically checked her rifle systems, ensuring that her customized .300 Winchester Magnum would function reliably despite the extreme temperatures they would encounter. The weapon had never failed her across multiple deployments, its precision-tuned mechanics adapted specifically for her shooting style and physical dimensions. Chun continued expressing reservations about team dynamics as they loaded into the transport helicopter, his concerns reflecting deeper uncertainties about gender integration in elite units. The Swiss Alps were unforgiving to even the most experienced operators, he argued, with exposure killing faster than enemy bullets in conditions like these. Mackenzie's presence created additional risk factors that the team had never faced before. Torres countered his arguments with statistical evidence from recent combat deployments, demonstrating that Mackenzie's performance metrics exceeded those of most male operators in similar roles. Physical strength was only one component of special operations effectiveness, she pointed out, while precision shooting, tactical analysis, and mental resilience often proved more decisive in mission outcomes. The helicopter lifted off into darkness, its rotors beating against air that grew progressively thinner as they climbed toward the insertion point. Morrison reviewed the mission timeline one final time, emphasizing that they had less than 18 hours to locate and neutralize the enemy positions before the arriving storm made extraction impossible. Mackenzie gazed through the small window at the approaching peaks, their snow-covered surfaces gleaming under moonlight like a landscape from another world. The mountains showed no mercy to those who underestimated their power, she knew, but they also provided opportunities for those with sufficient skill and determination to exploit their hidden advantages. Her confidence grew as familiar pre-mission focus settled over her thoughts, sharpening her awareness to combat readiness. The insertion point appeared ahead as a small clearing barely large enough for the helicopter to hover while the team fast-roped to the ground. Morrison went first, followed by the other team members in practice sequence, until only Mackenzie remained. She descended through swirling snow and rotor wash, landing softly on terrain that felt solid but treacherous beneath her boots. Within minutes, the helicopter disappeared into the darkness, leaving 12 operators alone in a wilderness where temperatures could kill within hours and enemies controlled every obvious approach route. Mackenzie shouldered her pack with smooth efficiency, adjusting the weight distribution for optimal mobility across the challenging terrain that lay ahead. The real test was about to begin. The alpine wind struck with vicious intensity as the team moved through knee-deep snow, their breath forming crystalline clouds that disappeared instantly in the sub-zero air. Morrison led the formation toward the predetermined base camp location, his GPS readings barely visible through the condensation fogging his protective eyewear. Each step required deliberate effort as the thin atmosphere challenged even their exceptional conditioning. Mackenzie moved with surprising grace across the treacherous terrain, her lighter frame allowing her to navigate surface snow that trapped heavier team members in deeper drifts. She had studied alpine warfare techniques extensively during her previous deployment preparation, understanding how mountain environments demanded adaptation rather than brute force approaches. Her specialized cold weather training was proving more valuable than her skeptical teammates had anticipated. Rodriguez struggled with equipment weight distribution as his pack shifted awkwardly during the steep ascent, forcing him to pause frequently for readjustment. The altitude was affecting his usual endurance levels, he admitted quietly to Chun, who was experiencing similar difficulties with the reduced oxygen availability. Both men had excelled in desert and jungle environments, but found these conditions uniquely challenging. The designated base campsite offered minimal protection from the elements, consisting of a small depression surrounded by snow-covered rocks that provided partial windbreak. Morrison ordered immediate establishment of concealed positions while Torres distributed cold weather rations designed to provide maximum calories with minimal preparation time. The team worked efficiently despite the harsh conditions, their movements precise but noticeably slower than normal operations. Mackenzie completed her position setup faster than her teammates, demonstrating familiarity with extreme weather protocols that surprised even Torres. Her equipment arrangement reflected careful planning for temperature control and rapid deployment, with weapon systems positioned for immediate access while maintaining protection from ice formation. The other team members began observing her techniques with grudging interest. Communication with headquarters proved challenging as atmospheric conditions interfered with satellite signals, forcing multiple transmission attempts before achieving clear contact. The initial intelligence briefing had significantly underestimated enemy strength, Morrison learned during the crackling radio exchange. Reconnaissance satellites had detected additional hostile positions that intelligence analysts had initially dismissed as equipment caches. Chen established overwatch positions with advanced optics, scanning the valley approaches for movement patterns that would reveal enemy deployment strategies. His thermal imaging equipment detected heat signatures indicating far more combatants than the reported company-sized element. The enemy battalion appeared to number closer to 200 soldiers, he reported grimly, with heavy weapons positions controlling multiple approach routes. Torres coordinated equipment distribution while monitoring weather forecasts that predicted deteriorating conditions within hours. The approaching storm system would bring wind speeds exceeding 80 miles per hour with visibility reduced to less than 10 meters, she informed Morrison through their encrypted communication system. Their operational window was shrinking rapidly as nature prepared to become their primary adversary. Mackenzie requested permission to conduct advanced reconnaissance using her specialized optics, arguing that her marksmanship training included extensive target identification protocols. Morrison initially hesitated, concerned about exposing team members to unnecessary risk before the tactical situation became clearer. The enemy positions appeared well-coordinated and professionally established, suggesting experienced military leadership rather than irregular forces. Radio contact with the trapped NATO forces provided increasingly desperate updates about their deteriorating situation. Captain Hans Müller of the German Mountain Infantry reported 12 casualties among his 37 soldiers, with hypothermia setting in among the wounded who lacked adequate shelter. Medical supplies were critically low, he transmitted through bursts of static, and several men would not survive another night without immediate evacuation or resupply. The time pressure intensified as Müller described enemy probing attacks that tested NATO defensive positions every few hours. His ammunition was running dangerously low, he admitted, with crew-served weapons down to their final 100 rounds. The enemy commander appeared to be conducting a deliberate siege, content to let weather and attrition accomplish what direct assault might achieve at higher cost. Morrison studied the tactical display on his waterproof tablet, analyzing approach routes that might allow the team to reach effective engagement range. Every obvious path led through kill zones where the enemy had established interlocking fields of fire, he realized with growing frustration. The hostile force had chosen their positions with professional skill that suggested advanced military training. Mackenzie pointed to alternative routes through glacier formations that conventional tactics would avoid, explaining how the ice flows could provide concealment from thermal detection systems. Her proposal involved movement through terrain that appeared suicidal to operators trained in traditional environments, but she argued that the extreme conditions would also limit enemy patrol effectiveness. Morrison dismissed her suggestions as unnecessarily risky given their time constraints. Chen detected movement through his spotting scope as enemy patrols increased their activity along the valley perimeter, apparently responding to intelligence reports about NATO reinforcement attempts. The hostile scouts demonstrated excellent fieldcraft, he observed, using natural terrain features and weather conditions to mask their movements. Several appeared to be equipped with advanced night vision technology that matched special operations standards. Torres established communications security protocols while monitoring enemy radio traffic that revealed sophisticated coordination between patrol elements. The opposing force was conducting professional military operations rather than guerrilla warfare, she reported to Morrison, with command structures and tactical procedures that suggested regular army training. Their equipment signatures indicated modern weapons systems and advanced surveillance capabilities. The first direct contact occurred when Rodriguez detected muzzle flashes from elevated positions that immediately bracketed the team's location with accurate suppressive fire. Morrison ordered immediate dispersal to covered positions as bullets impacted the snow around their hastily prepared fighting holes, sending up sprays of ice crystals that stung exposed skin. The enemy had somehow identified their position despite careful concealment procedures. Mackenzie low-crawled toward better observation angles while incoming rounds snapped overhead with distinctive supersonic cracks that indicated high-velocity rifle fire. Her movement techniques minimized exposure while allowing tactical assessment of enemy shooter positions. She called out target coordinates to Morrison through their helmet communication systems. The hostile marksmen were demonstrating exceptional accuracy at extreme range. Chen attempted to return fire, but found his targets well concealed behind rock formations that provided excellent protection from counter-sniper operations. The enemy positions had been selected with obvious expertise, he reported in frustrated tones, offering minimal exposure windows while maintaining commanding fields of fire. Standard suppression techniques were proving ineffective against such professionally prepared positions. Morrison realized that their tactical situation had deteriorated beyond acceptable risk parameters as additional enemy elements began flanking movements that would soon compromise their escape routes. The hostile force was conducting coordinated small unit tactics that demonstrated advanced training and leadership, he transmitted to headquarters while organizing withdrawal procedures. Direct engagement under current conditions would result in catastrophic casualties. The team executed fighting withdrawal procedures while Mackenzie provided precision cover fire that forced enemy advancement to slow considerably. Her shooting positions allowed engagement opportunities that other team members could not effectively exploit, Morrison observed, as hostile scouts became notably more cautious in their approach patterns. The enemy was learning to respect her marksmanship capabilities. Torres coordinated movement to alternate positions located higher up the mountain slope, where terrain features might provide better defensive advantages despite increased exposure to weather conditions. The team displaced in tactical bounds while maintaining suppressive fire that prevented enemy forces from achieving overwhelming positional advantage. Their ammunition expenditure was becoming a serious concern given the extended engagement timeline. The new position offered improved observation capabilities, but left the team more exposed to the intensifying storm conditions that were beginning to affect visibility and equipment function. Mackenzie established her rifle system in a position that maximized engagement opportunities while providing some protection from the increasing wind speeds that threatened to affect bullet trajectory calculations. The weather was rapidly becoming as dangerous as the enemy forces. Mackenzie studied the enemy positions through her advanced spotting scope, mapping defensive patterns that revealed critical vulnerabilities in their otherwise professional deployment. The hostile force had established excellent interlocking fields of fire across all conventional approach routes, she observed, but their positioning showed a fundamental misunderstanding of alpine terrain dynamics. Their confidence in natural barriers had created a blind spot that experienced mountain warfare specialists would never have overlooked. The glacier field extending northwest from their current position offered a route that would bypass every enemy observation post, Mackenzie explained to Morrison during their tactical assessment conference. The crevasse patterns created natural concealment corridors that thermal imaging could not penetrate, while ice formations would mask movement signatures from acoustic detection systems. Most importantly, the treacherous terrain meant no enemy patrols would venture into areas where avalanche risks made survival questionable. Morrison examined her proposal with growing skepticism, pointing out that the glacier approach would require solo movement across terrain that killed experienced mountaineers under ideal conditions. Current weather forecasts predicted deteriorating visibility and increasing wind speeds that would make navigation nearly impossible, he argued, while the physical demands of ice climbing would exhaust even elite operators before reaching effective engagement range. The plan appeared to be tactical suicide disguised as unconventional thinking. Rodriguez supported Morrison's assessment, emphasizing that Mackenzie's smaller frame would make her particularly vulnerable to the extreme cold and altitude effects they were already experiencing. The glacier field stretched over 12 kilometers of unstable ice formations that shifted constantly under temperature variations, he noted, creating hidden crevasses that could swallow unwary travelers without warning. Solo operations in such conditions violated every principle of special operations survival doctrine. Chun added concerns about communication difficulties that would isolate Mackenzie from team support during critical phases of the mission. The mountain terrain already interfered with radio signals, he pointed out, while ice formations would create additional electromagnetic barriers that could sever contact entirely. Operating without backup or extraction possibilities represented an unacceptable risk level that no competent commander would authorize under any circumstances. Torres examined the topographical data more carefully, identifying specific hazards that made Mackenzie's proposed route even more dangerous than initial assessments suggested. The glacier field contained numerous seracs that could collapse without warning, she reported, while recent satellite imagery showed signs of accelerated ice movement that indicated structural instability. The approach would require technical climbing skills that few special operations personnel possessed, even under controlled conditions. Mackenzie acknowledged their concerns, but pressed forward with detailed analysis that addressed each objection systematically. Her mountaineering background included extensive ice climbing experience gained during previous assignments in Alaska and Norway, she reminded them, where she had successfully navigated similar terrain under comparable conditions. The glacier route offered tactical advantages that outweighed the physical risks when measured against alternative approaches. Morrison ordered preparation for a conventional flanking assault that would attempt to penetrate enemy positions through coordinated movement and suppressive fire. The plan involved splitting the team into two elements that would conduct simultaneous attacks from different directions, hoping to overwhelm defensive positions through speed and aggressive tactics. Chun and Rodriguez would lead the primary assault, while Torres coordinated support fire from overwatch positions. The frontal assault commenced at dawn with Morrison's element advancing through rocky terrain that provided minimal concealment from enemy observation posts. Rodriguez led his team through a flanking approach that initially showed promise until hidden machine gun positions opened devastating crossfire that pinned both elements in exposed ground. The enemy had anticipated conventional tactics and prepared killing zones that negated every advantage the SEAL team possessed. Chun took shrapnel wounds to his left shoulder when mortar rounds began impacting their positions with deadly accuracy, forcing the team to withdraw under intense suppressive fire that prevented effective medical treatment. Torres dragged him to covered positions while enemy snipers engaged targets of opportunity with precision that demonstrated advanced marksmanship training. The hostile force was proving far more capable than intelligence estimates had suggested. Rodriguez suffered a through hand-throw bullet wound to his thigh during the fighting withdrawal, significantly reducing his mobility and combat effectiveness. Morrison realized that his team was facing professional opposition that possessed every tactical advantage while his own forces were diminishing rapidly through casualties and ammunition expenditure. The conventional approach had failed catastrophically, with multiple team members now requiring medical evacuation. Mackenzie provided covering fire during the withdrawal with precision shots that forced enemy advancement to halt temporarily. Her marksmanship kept hostile elements at maximum engagement range where their automatic weapons proved less effective, she reported to Morrison, while maintaining steady fire discipline that conserved precious ammunition. The enemy was learning to respect her shooting capabilities through painful experience. Torres conducted medical assessment of the wounded team members while calculating ammunition remaining across all weapon systems. Chen's shoulder wound required immediate surgical attention that field medical supplies could not provide, she informed Morrison, while Rodriguez's mobility was compromised to the extent that further combat operations were questionable. Their tactical effectiveness had been reduced by over 30% in a single engagement. Morrison reviewed their deteriorating situation with brutal honesty, acknowledging that conventional tactics had proven inadequate against the professional opposition they faced. The enemy controlled superior positions with better equipment, while his own team was bleeding personnel and supplies at unsustainable rates. Time was running out for both his unit and the trapped NATO forces whose radio transmissions were becoming increasingly desperate. Mackenzie renewed her proposal for the glacier approach with enhanced tactical analysis that incorporated intelligence gathered during the failed assault. The enemy positions she had observed revealed specific blind spots that could only be exploited through the treacherous mountain route, she argued, while their defensive preparations showed overconfidence in natural barriers that prevented unconventional approaches. Her plan offered the only realistic chance of mission success under current circumstances. The detailed briefing included precise navigation coordinates, equipment requirements, and timeline calculations that demonstrated thorough preparation for the solo mission. Mackenzie had studied ice formation patterns extensively, she explained, identifying stable routes through the glacier field that would minimize avalanche risks while providing concealment from enemy observation systems. Her climbing experience included technical rescue operations in similar conditions where split-second decisions determined survival outcomes. Morrison examined weather forecasts that showed a brief window of opportunity before the major storm system arrived in full force. The current conditions were marginal but manageable for an experienced ice climber, meteorological data suggested, while deteriorating visibility would actually enhance concealment opportunities for solo movement. The tactical situation had reached a point where desperate measures represented the only viable option. Torres supported Mackenzie's assessment after reviewing her mountaineering qualifications and previous performance records under extreme conditions. The sniper possessed specialized training that few team members could match, she pointed out, while her smaller profile would actually provide advantages in technical climbing scenarios where strength-to-weight ratios prove critical. The conventional wisdom about physical limitations might not apply to alpine warfare specialists. Rodriguez acknowledged from his medical treatment position that their tactical options had been reduced to unacceptable choices between certain failure and extreme risk. Mackenzie's proposal offered at least some possibility of mission success, he admitted, while continuing their current approach would guarantee catastrophic outcomes for both their team and the trapped NATO forces. The mathematics of survival favored taking calculated risks over accepting inevitable defeat. Chen agreed despite his injuries that the glacier approach represented their best remaining option, even though solo operations violated standard doctrine. Mackenzie had demonstrated exceptional competence under fire, he observed, while her tactical analysis had proven more accurate than their initial intelligence assessments. The mission required unconventional solutions that matched the unprecedented challenges they faced in this environment. Morrison reached his decision after weighing all factors against the urgent timeline imposed by both enemy action and weather conditions. Mackenzie would be authorized for the solo glacier approach with a 12-hour operational window before extraction procedures would commence regardless of mission status. The plan violated numerous safety protocols but offered their only realistic chance of preventing a larger tactical disaster. Equipment preparation for the solo mission required careful weight management that balanced survival necessities against mobility requirements. Mackenzie selected minimal gear focused on climbing efficiency and shooting accuracy, she explained while assembling specialized equipment that few operators had ever used. Her rifle system was configured for extreme-range precision shooting while maintaining reliability in sub-zero conditions that could disable conventional weapons. The mission briefing concluded with communication protocols that would maintain contact despite terrain limitations and emergency procedures for various contingency scenarios. Mackenzie would depart at first light when visibility conditions provided optimal navigation opportunities, Morrison announced, while the remaining team would conduct diversionary operations to mask her movement toward the glacier field. Success depended entirely on her ability to exploit the tactical advantages that conventional approaches had failed to achieve. Dawn approached with clearing skies that revealed the glacier field in stark detail, its crevassed surface gleaming under early sunlight like a battlefield of ice and shadow. Mackenzie completed her final equipment checks with methodical precision, ensuring that every piece of gear would function reliably in the extreme conditions she was about to face. The solo mission would test every skill she possessed while determining the fate of multiple military units trapped in this frozen wilderness. Mackenzie departed the team position as dawn light transformed the glacier field into a crystalline maze of deadly beauty, her movements precise and deliberate across ice formations that could collapse without warning. The specialized crampons attached to her boots bit securely into the frozen surface, while her ice axes provided additional stability points during the treacherous descent toward the crevasse zone. Each step required careful weight distribution that balanced speed against survival as she entered terrain that had claimed experienced mountaineers under far better conditions. The first crevasse appeared as a jagged wound in the glacier surface, its depths disappearing into blue-black shadows that seemed to swallow light itself. Mackenzie secured her climbing rope to solid ice anchors before rappelling into the chasm, her headlamp revealing ice walls that stretched both above and below beyond the reach of her equipment. The confined space amplified every sound, while reducing her world to the immediate necessities of technical climbing and navigation through nature's frozen labyrinth. Radio contact with Morrison crackled through atmospheric interference as she reported successful penetration of the glacier's outer perimeter. The enemy positions showed increased activity according to thermal imaging surveillance, he transmitted back, with hostile patrols expanding their search patterns in response to intelligence reports about NATO reinforcement attempts. Mackenzie acknowledged while continuing her methodical progress through ice formations that concealed her heat signature from electronic detection systems. Enemy artillery began impacting the valley positions where trapped NATO forces maintained their desperate defensive perimeter, the distant explosions echoing through the mountain terrain with ominous rumbles that preceded avalanche warnings. Captain Mueller's increasingly frantic radio transmissions described devastating bombardment that was systematically destroying his remaining defensive positions, his ammunition stores depleted to the point where organized resistance would collapse within hours rather than days. Mackenzie navigated around a massive sérac that towered above her route like a frozen skyscraper, its unstable structure showing stress fractures that indicated imminent collapse. The ice formation groaned under temperature variations while shifting imperceptibly in ways that experienced climbers learned to recognize as warning signs. Her path required precise timing that would carry her past the danger zone before gravitational forces completed their inevitable work. The avalanche struck without warning when thermal expansion finally triggered the sérac's collapse, sending thousands of tons of ice cascading through the glacier valley with destructive force that obliterated everything in its path. Mackenzie dove toward the shelter of an ice overhang as the frozen debris thundered past her position, filling the air with crystalline particles that reduced visibility to zero while threatening to bury her beneath the accumulated mass of broken glacier. Morrison's voice exploded through her headset with urgent demands for status reports as seismic sensors detected the massive ice movement that had compromised her planned route. Mackenzie confirmed her survival while assessing the dramatically altered terrain that now blocked her intended approach corridor, forcing immediate adaptation to navigate through debris fields that had created new hazards while potentially revealing her position to enemy observation posts. The glacier field had been transformed into a landscape of shattered ice blocks and exposed crevasses that offered both new obstacles and unexpected opportunities for concealment. Mackenzie identified alternative routes through ice caves that the avalanche had revealed, natural tunnels carved by ancient water flows that provided protected passage beneath the surface where thermal detection would prove impossible. The catastrophic event had inadvertently created tactical advantages that skilled operators could exploit. Torres coordinated diversionary operations designed to mask Mackenzie's movement while drawing enemy attention toward conventional approach routes. The remaining SEAL team members conducted limited engagement sequences that suggested preparation for another frontal assault, their calculated fire patterns convincing hostile observers that reinforcement efforts focused on direct tactical approaches. The deception required precise timing to maintain credibility without exposing the reduced team to unnecessary casualties. Mackenzie entered the ice cave system with her equipment reconfigured for confined space operations, her rifle secured across her back, while climbing gear took priority for immediate access. The underground passages extended far deeper than surface observation suggested, she discovered, creating a natural tunnel network that wound through the glacier's interior structure like frozen arteries. Her progress accelerated dramatically as stable ice conditions eliminated the constant avalanche threats that characterized surface movement. Emergency frequencies carried desperate transmissions from the trapped NATO forces as enemy attacks intensified beyond their capacity for effective resistance. Mueller reported that his defensive perimeter had contracted to less than 50 meters diameter, with wounded soldiers packed into inadequate shelter while ammunition reserves dwindled to individual magazines for each surviving combatant. The enemy commander was conducting methodical destruction that would eliminate all resistance within the next few hours. The ice caves emerged unexpectedly onto a concealed ledge that provided commanding observation over the entire enemy rear area, positioning Mackenzie behind their primary defensive lines, where surveillance efforts focused outward toward expected threat directions. Her specialized optics revealed detailed intelligence about hostile force composition and defensive arrangements that confirmed her initial assessment of professional military organization rather than irregular guerrilla operations. Mackenzie identified her first target through careful observation of enemy command and control procedures, selecting a forward observer who was directing artillery fire against the trapped NATO positions. The hostile soldier occupied an elevated observation post approximately 800 meters from her concealed position, well within effective range for her precision rifle system despite challenging environmental conditions that affected bullet trajectory calculations. Wind speed measurements taken with handheld instruments indicated crosswinds averaging 15 miles per hour with gusts reaching 25, requiring careful compensation for ballistic deflection across the extended engagement distance. Mackenzie calculated atmospheric conditions including temperature, humidity, and altitude effects while accounting for target movement patterns that would determine optimal engagement windows. Her first shot needed to achieve complete surprise while maintaining her concealed position. The suppressed rifle fired with minimal sound signature as the specially designed subsonic ammunition eliminated the supersonic crack that typically revealed sniper positions to enemy forces. Mackenzie observed bullet impact through her spotting scope, confirming immediate target neutralization while scanning for reaction patterns that would indicate whether her position had been compromised by muzzle flash or other detection methods. Enemy forces showed no immediate awareness of the loss, as their communication procedures failed to account for the missing forward observer who had been directing their most effective fire missions. Mackenzie reloaded methodically while identifying secondary targets that would further disrupt hostile command and control without revealing the systematic elimination that was beginning to reduce their tactical effectiveness. Her position offered engagement opportunities that conventional approaches could never achieve. Rodriguez transmitted updated intelligence about enemy movements detected through thermal imaging systems, reporting increased patrol activity along conventional approach routes, while the glacier area received minimal surveillance attention. The hostile force was concentrating defensive efforts against anticipated threats while remaining unaware of the infiltrator who had penetrated their rear security zone through routes they considered impassable. Mackenzie established her primary sniper hide among ice formations that provided both concealment and stability for extended precision shooting. Her equipment arranged for rapid target engagement while maintaining protection from counter-sniper detection. The position commanded observation over critical enemy assets including communication sites, weapon storage areas, and leadership positions that could be systematically targeted to create tactical chaos. Enemy radio traffic increased significantly as artillery coordination problems became apparent to hostile commanders who were experiencing unexplained communication failures. Their forward observer positions were reporting equipment malfunctions and personnel problems that disrupted the carefully planned bombardment sequences designed to eliminate NATO resistance before final assault operations commenced. Mackenzie monitored their frequencies while selecting her next target. The enemy battalion commander emerged from his concealed command post to personally investigate the coordination failures that were affecting his operational timeline, presenting Mackenzie with an unexpected opportunity to eliminate senior leadership. The hostile officer was accompanied by communications personnel and security elements who provided challenging target discrimination requirements, but his distinctive equipment and command behavior made identification certain despite the extended engagement range. Mackenzie calculated the complex ballistic solution required for the precision shot while accounting for multiple environmental factors that affected long-range accuracy. The target presented intermittent exposure windows as he moved between covered positions, requiring perfect timing to achieve successful engagement without compromising her concealed position through extended target tracking that might reveal her location to enemy counter-surveillance efforts. Chen reported from his medical treatment position that NATO radio transmissions indicated enemy assault preparations were accelerating despite the coordination problems affecting their artillery support. Mueller's forces had less than 2 hours before being completely overrun. He transmitted grimly. While weather conditions continued deteriorating toward the major storm system that would eliminate any possibility of helicopter extraction for either friendly force. The tactical situation demanded immediate escalation of Mackenzie's elimination campaign to prevent enemy assault success before her systematic targeting could achieve decisive disruption. She identified priority targets that would create maximum tactical chaos while maintaining operational security that preserved her ability to continue engagement operations from the concealed position that provided such overwhelming advantages against professional opposition. Torres coordinated timing sequences that would synchronize Mackenzie's precision targeting with diversionary operations designed to maximize confusion among enemy forces who were already experiencing communication difficulties. The combined effects would create tactical paralysis that might delay assault operations long enough for the major storm to force enemy withdrawal, saving both SEAL Team and NATO forces through environmental intervention rather than direct military defeat. Enemy commanders ordered intensified reconnaissance efforts to identify the source of their coordination problems while maintaining aggressive pressure against NATO defensive positions that were collapsing under sustained bombardment and limited ammunition availability. Their professional competence was evident in adaptive responses to unexpected tactical challenges, but Mackenzie's position offered continuing advantages that superior training and equipment could exploit despite enemy numerical superiority. Mackenzie initiated systematic elimination of enemy leadership with calculated precision that transformed tactical chaos into organizational collapse, her second target falling silently at 940 meters despite wind conditions that would challenge even Olympic marksmen. The hostile communications officer dropped without warning while coordinating artillery strikes, his radio equipment scattering across the snow as confusion spread through command positions that suddenly found themselves operating without centralized control. Enemy forces continued their assault preparations while remaining unaware that their coordination structure was being methodically dismantled by an invisible opponent who exploited every weakness in their defensive arrangements. Mackenzie tracked movement patterns through her advanced optics while calculating complex ballistic solutions that accounted for temperature gradients, wind deflection, and altitude effects that made each shot a masterpiece of applied physics and practical marksmanship. The third elimination targeted a heavy weapons specialist who was directing mortar fire against trapped NATO positions, his death creating immediate confusion among crew members who suddenly lacked technical expertise to maintain accurate bombardment. Mackenzie observed the tactical disruption through her spotting scope, noting how the loss of specialized personnel was creating cascading failures that affected multiple weapon systems simultaneously. Morrison monitored enemy radio frequencies from his overwatch position, detecting increased chatter that indicated growing awareness of coordination problems among hostile commanders. The enemy was experiencing equipment failures and personnel difficulties that they attributed to harsh weather conditions rather than enemy action, he reported to Mackenzie, while maintaining communication protocols that preserved her operational security during the precision targeting campaign. Mackenzie's fourth target presented exceptional challenges at 1,120 meters range, requiring compensation for crosswinds that varied significantly across the extended bullet flight path. The enemy sniper occupied an elevated position that provided commanding fields of fire over NATO defensive areas, his elimination essential to protect friendly forces from precision targeting that had already claimed several defenders. The shot demanded perfect execution under marginal conditions that tested every aspect of her marksmanship training. Wind speed variations required real-time adjustment based on visual indicators, including snow drift patterns, vegetation movement, and atmospheric disturbance signatures that experienced marksmen learned to interpret instinctively. McKenzie calculated the complex deflection angles while accounting for spin drift effects and gravitational drop over the extended engagement distance. Her mental ballistics computer processing variables that would overwhelm less experienced shooters. The precision rifle discharged with minimal recoil as specialized ammunition delivered devastating terminal effects at extreme range, the enemy sniper falling backward from his concealed position without ever detecting the threat that eliminated him. McKenzie confirmed target neutralization while scanning for reaction patterns that would indicate whether counter-sniper teams were beginning to locate her general area through sound signature analysis or muzzle flash detection. Torres reported through encrypted channels that enemy artillery effectiveness was degrading noticeably as coordination failures affected targeting accuracy and rate of fire against NATO positions. The trapped forces were experiencing reduced bombardment pressure that allowed limited movement and medical treatment for wounded personnel, she observed, while hostile fire missions showed increasing delays and reduced precision that suggested systematic disruption of command and control procedures. Enemy patrols began expanding their search patterns as field commanders attempted to identify sources of the communication problems that were affecting their operational timeline. McKenzie tracked hostile movement through her optics while maintaining absolute concealment within ice formations that provided natural camouflage against both visual and thermal detection systems. Her position remained secure despite increasing enemy awareness that something was disrupting their carefully planned operations. The fifth elimination required engagement across variable terrain that created multiple wind zones affecting bullet trajectory in unpredictable ways. McKenzie identified an enemy forward artillery observer who was attempting to restore fire coordination through alternative communication methods, his position offering partial concealment behind rocky outcroppings that complicated target identification. The shot demanded exceptional precision to achieve clean elimination without revealing her location through extended tracking time. Atmospheric conditions were deteriorating as the approaching storm system began affecting visibility and wind patterns that would soon make precision shooting impossible even for expert marksmen. McKenzie accelerated her targeting sequence while environmental factors remained within acceptable parameters for long-range engagement, knowing that the window for systematic elimination was closing rapidly as weather conditions approached the major storm threshold. Rodriguez transmitted updated intelligence about enemy force dispositions from his medical treatment position, reporting that hostile units were showing signs of tactical confusion as leadership casualties accumulated beyond their replacement capacity. The enemy battalion was experiencing command structure degradation that affected decision-making processes and operational coordination, he observed, while maintaining defensive positions that no longer possessed effective central control. McKenzie engaged her sixth target at maximum effective range as enemy commanders attempted to establish alternative command posts that would restore operational control over dispersed units. The hostile officer was directing defensive repositioning when the precision shot eliminated him at 1,260 meters, a distance that represented the absolute limit of her rifle system's capabilities under current environmental conditions. Chun monitored NATO communications frequencies while receiving medical treatment, reporting that trapped forces were detecting reduced enemy pressure that allowed tactical repositioning within their shrinking defensive perimeter. Captain Mueller transmitted cautious optimism about survival prospects that had improved dramatically as hostile bombardment became sporadic and poorly coordinated, his wounded soldiers gaining precious time for medical stabilization and defensive preparation. Enemy counter-sniper teams deployed with sophisticated detection equipment designed to locate concealed shooters through acoustic signature analysis and thermal imaging surveillance. McKenzie observed their search patterns while maintaining absolute movement discipline that prevented detection by professional marksmen who possessed equipment and training comparable to special operations standards. Their systematic approach indicated high-level military competence that recognized the threat represented by precision elimination campaigns. The hostile teams established overwatch positions that commanded observation over suspected sniper locations, their advanced optics scanning terrain features where concealed shooters might establish effective hides. McKenzie recognized their tactical competence while exploiting ice formations that provided concealment advantages unavailable in conventional environments, her position remaining undetected despite intensive search efforts by experienced counter-sniper specialists. Morrison coordinated diversionary operations that drew enemy attention toward conventional threat directions, while Mackenzie continued her systematic elimination of priority targets. The SEAL team conducted limited engagement sequences that suggested preparation for another assault attempt, their tactical deception convincing hostile observers that main threats still originated from obvious approach routes rather than the impossible glacier infiltration that had positioned their sniper behind enemy lines. Mackenzie eliminated the seventh target when enemy attempts to restore artillery coordination created exposure opportunities for technical specialists who were essential to weapon system operation. The hostile communications technician fell at 900 meters while attempting to establish backup radio networks, his death creating additional disruption that compounded the cascading failures affecting battalion-level coordination and tactical effectiveness. Enemy forces began showing visible signs of organizational breakdown as casualties among specialized personnel created capability gaps that could not be filled by ordinary infantry soldiers. Mackenzie observed tactical confusion spreading through hostile positions that lacked technical expertise to operate sophisticated equipment effectively, their professional competence degrading as key personnel were systematically eliminated through precision targeting that they could neither detect nor counter effectively. Torres reported that enemy radio traffic indicated growing awareness among surviving commanders that they were facing coordinated elimination rather than equipment failures or weather-related communication problems. The hostile force was beginning to recognize that a sniper was systematically targeting their leadership structure. She transmitted to Mackenzie, while remaining unable to locate or neutralize the threat that continued eliminating priority targets with devastating effectiveness. The eighth elimination targeted an enemy platoon leader who was attempting to organize coordinated assault against NATO positions that had been delayed repeatedly by communication failures and leadership casualties. Mackenzie engaged at 1,040 meters as the hostile officer emerged from concealed positions to direct tactical movements, her precision shot eliminating another command element that further degraded enemy organizational capacity. Enemy battalion operations were approaching tactical paralysis as surviving commanders struggled to maintain operational control over dispersed units that lacked centralized coordination. Mackenzie continued her systematic targeting while monitoring hostile communications that revealed increasing desperation among leaders who recognized that their operational timeline was collapsing despite numerical superiority and positional advantages that should have guaranteed mission success. Chun transmitted intelligence about enemy force disposition changes that indicated tactical withdrawal from advanced positions as commanders attempted to consolidate remaining strength around core defensive areas. The hostile battalion was abandoning extended positions that had provided tactical advantages, he reported, their contraction suggesting recognition that current operations were no longer sustainable under existing conditions. Mackenzie identified priority targets among the concentrated enemy forces while calculating engagement opportunities that would maximize tactical disruption without compromising her concealed position. The hostile consolidation created target-rich environment, but also increased counter-surveillance efforts that posed greater detection risks for extended shooting operations from the same general location. Morrison received updated weather forecasts indicating that the major storm system would arrive within 2 hours, bringing visibility conditions that would eliminate any possibility of continued precision targeting or tactical movement across exposed terrain. The operational window was closing rapidly as environmental factors prepared to dominate tactical considerations, he transmitted to Mackenzie while coordinating extraction procedures for all friendly forces. Enemy radio transmissions indicated growing recognition among surviving commanders that their tactical situation had become untenable as leadership casualties mounted beyond replacement capacity, while coordination failures prevented effective utilization of remaining combat strength. The hostile force was experiencing systemic breakdown that affected every aspect of their operational capability, despite maintaining significant numerical advantages over opposing forces. The ninth elimination targeted the enemy operations officer who was attempting to coordinate tactical withdrawal that would preserve combat effectiveness, while abandoning positions that had become impossible to maintain under systematic sniper attack. Mackenzie engaged at 1,100 meters as storm conditions began affecting visibility, her precision shot eliminating another key leader whose loss would further complicate enemy extraction procedures. Torres monitored NATO communications channels while receiving reports that trapped forces were observing enemy withdrawal from positions that had threatened to overrun their defensive perimeter within hours. Captain Mueller transmitted incredulous observations about hostile forces abandoning tactical advantages that had seemed insurmountable, his soldiers gaining unexpected reprieve that transformed certain defeat into possible survival. Mackenzie prepared for final targeting sequence as enemy forces initiated general withdrawal from positions that no longer offered tactical advantages against an opponent who could eliminate leadership elements with impunity. The hostile battalion was recognizing that continued operations would result in complete destruction of command structure without achieving military objectives that had become impossible under current circumstances. Enemy commanders ordered immediate evacuation as casualty rates among specialized personnel exceeded sustainable levels, while weather conditions threatened to trap remaining forces in positions that offered no protection against precision elimination. The hostile force was abandoning their siege of trapped NATO forces after achieving tactical dominance that systematic sniper operations had transformed into organizational catastrophe through precise targeting of irreplaceable leadership elements. Enemy forces abandoned their positions with unprecedented speed as surviving commanders recognized that continued operations would result in complete annihilation of remaining leadership elements, their tactical withdrawal degenerating into disorganized retreat across mountain terrain that offered minimal concealment from the invisible marksmen who had systematically destroyed their command structure. Mackenzie observed the hostile evacuation through her optics while maintaining overwatch until the last enemy elements disappeared beyond effective engagement range. Morrison coordinated immediate advance toward NATO positions as enemy resistance collapsed entirely, the SEAL team moving through abandoned defensive sites that revealed the professional quality of opponents who had maintained tactical discipline until systematic elimination forced organizational breakdown. Abandoned equipment included advanced communication systems and heavy weapons that confirmed intelligence assessments about the hostile force's military competence and sophisticated logistical support. Torres established secure communications with Captain Mueller while advancing through terrain that hours earlier had been controlled by overwhelming enemy strength, her radio transmissions carrying the incredible news that hostile forces were conducting full withdrawal after sustaining catastrophic leadership casualties. The trapped NATO forces responded with disbelief that transformed into cautious relief as artillery bombardment ceased entirely and enemy pressure evaporated without explanation. Mackenzie began her extraction from the glacier field as weather conditions deteriorated towards storm levels that would soon make movement impossible even for experienced mountaineers, her route selection prioritizing speed over concealment now that tactical objectives had been achieved. The 18-hour solo operation had pushed her physical capabilities beyond normal endurance limits, but adrenaline and mission success provided energy reserves that sustained her through the treacherous return journey. Chen reported through his medical treatment position that intercepted enemy communications revealed casualty figures exceeding 60% among leadership elements and specialized personnel, creating capability gaps that eliminated the battalion's effectiveness as a coherent fighting force. The hostile withdrawal was proceeding under emergency protocols that indicated recognition of tactical defeat, despite numerical superiority that should have guaranteed victory against much larger opposition. Rodriguez confirmed visual observation of enemy evacuation convoys moving rapidly toward extraction points while abandoning heavy equipment that could not be transported quickly enough to avoid potential pursuit. The hostile force was demonstrating professional discipline during their retreat, he noted, but their haste indicated desperation to escape an operational environment where continued presence guaranteed further devastating losses. NATO forces emerged from their defensive positions with extreme caution, Mueller's soldiers unable to comprehend how overwhelming enemy pressure had suddenly transformed into complete absence of hostile contact. The German mountain infantry commander transmitted incremental reports about abandoned enemy equipment and defensive positions that revealed the extent of the siege operation that had threatened to destroy his entire unit within hours. Mackenzie rejoined her team after navigating the return route through deteriorating weather conditions that pushed visibility toward zero while wind speeds approached the threshold for survival in exposed terrain. Her arrival generated immediate medical assessment from Torres, who documented physical condition indicators that reflected exceptional endurance under extreme environmental stress that would have incapacitated less experienced operators. Morrison conducted preliminary after-action assessment while coordinating extraction procedures that would remove all friendly forces before the major storm system eliminated helicopter operations entirely. The tactical success exceeded all operational parameters, he reported to headquarters, with enemy forces neutralized and NATO personnel rescued, without friendly casualties despite facing overwhelming odds in extremely challenging environmental conditions. Torres documented equipment status and ammunition expenditure during the operation, noting that Mackenzie's precision targeting had achieved decisive tactical effects, while consuming minimal resources compared to conventional approaches that would have required massive firepower and probable casualties. The efficiency metrics demonstrated how specialized skills could multiply combat effectiveness far beyond normal force ratios. Chun transmitted detailed intelligence about abandoned enemy positions to headquarters for analysis by specialists who would determine the full extent of hostile capabilities that had been neutralized through unconventional operations. The enemy battalion had possessed equipment and training that represented significant threat potential, he observed, their defeat preventing potential escalation that could have affected regional security balance. Rodriguez coordinated movement toward extraction zones while monitoring weather forecasts that indicated rapidly approaching conditions requiring immediate evacuation for all personnel. The operational timeline had compressed to critical levels, he reported, with helicopter insertion possible for perhaps 30 minutes before atmospheric conditions would ground all aircraft until the storm system passed completely. NATO medical personnel established treatment areas for wounded soldiers who could finally receive proper care after hours of makeshift field medicine under enemy fire. Mueller expressed profound gratitude for intervention that had saved his entire unit from certain destruction, his radio transmissions carrying emotional undertones that reflected the magnitude of their rescue from impossible circumstances. Mackenzie underwent medical evaluation while providing preliminary tactical debriefing about enemy force composition and capabilities observed during her solo infiltration mission. Her intelligence included precise details about equipment, training levels, and organizational structure that would prove valuable for future operations against similar professional opposition, Torres noted while documenting information that exceeded normal reconnaissance capabilities. Morrison prepared formal after-action reports that would document tactical innovations and exceptional individual performance for review by Special Operations Command elements responsible for training and doctrine development. Mackenzie's operation represented paradigm-shifting approaches to mountain warfare that challenged conventional assumptions about personnel limitations and tactical possibilities in extreme environments. Enemy radio intercepts revealed continuing organizational confusion among surviving hostile elements who were attempting to account for catastrophic losses while explaining tactical failure to superior commands that had expected overwhelming victory. The enemy force was conducting damage assessment that would require extensive time and resources to restore operational capability, intelligence specialists reported. Torres coordinated helicopter extraction as weather conditions approached critical thresholds for rotary-wing aircraft operations, the pilot reporting maximum risk levels for approach and departure procedures that could not be delayed without accepting mission failure. All personnel were ordered to extraction zones with essential equipment only, leaving non-critical materials for recovery during follow-up operations under better conditions. Chun transmitted final intelligence reports about enemy withdrawal routes and timeline estimates that would allow friendly forces to monitor hostile movement without direct contact. The enemy battalion was conducting rapid extraction toward predetermined assembly areas where reorganization efforts would attempt to restore combat effectiveness, he observed, but casualty levels suggested extended periods would be required for recovery. McKenzie completed her tactical debriefing while medical personnel confirmed that her physical condition remained within acceptable parameters despite extreme environmental exposure and operational stress that exceeded normal human endurance limits. Her performance during the solo mission had established new benchmarks for individual operator capabilities under impossible circumstances. Medical staff noted for their professional documentation. Rodriguez reported successful coordination with NATO forces who were preparing their own extraction procedures while expressing continuing amazement at the tactical transformation they had witnessed. Mueller's soldiers were describing impossible marksmanship that had eliminated enemy threats at distances they could barely observe. He transmitted their accounts requiring documentation for intelligence purposes. Morrison finalized operational reports that would undergo extensive analysis by training commands responsible for developing improved techniques and equipment for extreme environment operations. McKenzie's tactical innovations represented potential doctrine changes that could affect how special operations units approached similar challenges in future conflicts, he observed while emphasizing the exceptional nature of her performance. Helicopter extraction commenced under marginal weather conditions as the pilot executed precision flying that brought the aircraft to ground contact for minimal time required to embark all personnel and essential equipment. McKenzie was last to board after confirming that no classified materials remained in the operational area, her attention to security details maintaining professional standards despite physical exhaustion from her extended solo mission. Torres documented preliminary casualty assessment indicating that McKenzie's precision targeting had eliminated 34 enemy combatants during her 18-hour operation, establishing engagement effectiveness ratios that exceeded any previous special operations records. The statistical analysis would require verification through multiple intelligence sources, but initial estimates suggested unprecedented individual combat achievements under extreme conditions. Chun transmitted final communications with NATO forces who were conducting their own extraction procedures while continuing to express disbelief at tactical events that had transformed certain defeat into unexpected survival. Mueller's final radio transmission included formal commendation requests for intervention that had preserved his entire unit through actions that appeared impossible under existing circumstances. Return flight to base operations proceeded without incident as weather conditions deteriorated behind them, confirming that extraction timing had been executed within minimal acceptable margins for mission success. Morrison reviewed preliminary reports while acknowledging that McKenzie's operation would require extensive documentation and analysis by specialists who understood the implications of individual performance that redefined tactical possibilities. Base operations personnel greeted the returning team with intelligence reports indicating that enemy battalion withdrawal had been confirmed through multiple surveillance assets, their retreat proceeding rapidly toward recovery areas where extensive reorganization would be required to restore operational capability. The tactical victory was complete, with strategic implications that exceeded the immediate rescue mission parameters. McKenzie underwent comprehensive medical evaluation and extended debriefing sessions with specialists who documented tactical techniques and equipment modifications that had enabled successful operations under conditions previously considered impossible for individual operators. Her innovations would require integration into training programs and equipment development initiatives that could benefit future special operations missions. Morrison submitted formal recommendations for recognition and promotion that reflected exceptional performance under circumstances that tested every aspect of special operations training and individual capability. McKenzie's tactical achievements represented the highest standards of military excellence, he wrote, with strategic implications that demonstrated the value of unconventional approaches to seemingly impossible challenges. Rodriguez reported during his medical treatment that team dynamics had been permanently altered by witnessing individual performance that exceeded every previous example of special operations capability. His assessment echoed by other team members who recognized that conventional assumptions about physical and tactical limitations required fundamental revision based on observable evidence rather than theoretical constraints. Intelligence analysis confirmed that enemy force withdrawal represented strategic defeat, with long-term implications for regional security balance, their losses requiring extensive time and resources for recovery while demonstrating vulnerability to tactics they had not anticipated or prepared to counter effectively. Mackenzie's operation had achieved strategic effects through tactical excellence that multiplied individual capability far beyond normal force ratios. Base Command issued preliminary mission assessment indicating complete success, with 0 friendly casualties, while achieving objectives that had appeared impossible under existing tactical circumstances. The operation would require extensive documentation for training purposes and doctrine development that could incorporate lessons learned from exceptional individual performance under extreme conditions. Final mission briefing 3 weeks later included specific personnel requests from multiple special operations units who had reviewed preliminary reports about tactical innovations and exceptional performance during Alpine operations. Mackenzie's reputation had spread throughout the special operations community, Morrison noted, with commanders specifically requesting her participation in future high-risk missions where unconventional approaches might provide tactical advantages that conventional methods could not achieve.